Good morning. This is Mr. Herman. Today's remediation is going to be over line and angle theorems, which is what we've covered the past couple of weeks prior to talking about triangle proofs. When we start getting into full proofs next week, it will be important to make sure that we have a good understanding of what these look like, okay? And being able to recognize, based on our parallel lines, what are the angle relationships, and are they congruent or are they supplementary? So it might be helpful to look at your notes from line and angle theorems and line and angle congruencies a couple weeks ago. But we're going to go ahead and go through a few here before you move on to your notes in the post-test at the end of class today. So on number 1, we've got two angles y and x, and we've got several options: corresponding, alternate interior, alternate exterior, same side interior, and vertical. So if we recall, these right here, angle y and angle x, they're in the same position. So if I look at this point right here, it's in the bottom left. If I translate it down here to angle x, it's also in the bottom left of this area. So these are going to be corresponding angles. Okay, so go and try number 2 on your own. Now let's go and talk about number 2. Now we've got two angles right here, once again, y and x. Now we can consider two things here. They are both on the outside of the parallel lines. So y is on top, x is all the way on bottom. So we're thinking exterior here. And we've got y on the left side of the transversal. We have x on the right side of the transversal. So those are on opposite sides, or a fancy math word for opposite is alternate. So these are going to be alternate exterior angles. Okay. All right, now we're going to move on to looking at the measures of angles. So this portion of the pretest is to think about what angles are congruent and what angles are supplementary. Okay, so if you recall, supplementary means that our two angles will add up to 180 degrees. And congruent means our angles are the same size. So if we're looking here, we've got this angle that says 51, and we've got our question mark over here. So it's important to think about what type of angles these are first. And so this 51-degree angle, it's in the top left portion here. Our question mark's in the top left portion. I can perform a translation. All I have to do is a translation, and that's going to get me corresponding angles. So we just make a note here that those are corresponding. And if we know that they're corresponding angles, we can recall that corresponding angles are congruent. Okay, so congruent means it's the same. So that means that question mark equals 51 degrees. Go and try number 4 on your own. And now we'll go and talk about number 4 here. Let's see. So we've got 64 here. It's on the bottom left. It's outside the parallel lines. Our question mark up here is also outside the parallel lines. So I'm thinking exterior. 64 is on the left side of the transversal. Question marks on the right side of the transversal. So these are alternate or opposite sides of the transversal. So we have alternate exterior angles. And if we recall, alternate exterior angles are congruent, which means that question mark will equal 64. All right. Now let's go and move on to our last section here, where we have some expressions as our angle measures. Now is that going to focus for us? There we go. So we've got some expressions for our angle measures here, so we're going to have to solve for x. So number 5, if I'm looking at these types of angles, they're both inside the parallel line, something interior, and also they're both on the right side of the transversal. So that's going to be same side interior angles, and those are supplementary. Okay, if you recall, supplementary means adds to 180 degrees. So let's go ahead and make our equations. We have 12x minus 5 plus 25x equals 180. Now, I see this mistake a lot. Since we have 12x and 25x on the same side of the equal sign, we have to combine them. Okay, I'm going to use a different color here. We're going to combine them to make 37x minus 5 to equal 180. Okay, now we'll go ahead and add 5 onto both sides. Let's see, we get 185 equals 37x. Divide by 37, divide by 37, x equals, let's think for a second, that looks like it's going to be 5. So x will equal 5 here. All right, so go ahead and try number 6 on your own before we go over that together. Now let's take a look at our angles on number 6. If we're looking at our angles here, we're in the top right position. We're also in a top right position, though, inside the parallel lines. So once again, for the third time on the pretest, we have corresponding angles. Corresponding angles. It's like these might be important or something. We've seen them 3 times now. So corresponding angles, if we recall, are congruent. Mr. Herman doesn't want to write that word out anymore, so we're just going to put the congruent symbol. Make sure that we're good with that. So when we're congruent, we do not set them equal to 180. We don't set them equal to 90. We just set them equal to each other. So we have x plus 135 equals 130. Okay, now we got a pretty straightforward one-step equation right here. We'll subtract 135 on each side to get x by itself. So x equals -5. All right. So go ahead and work on the notes on the back of this page. If you get stuck on identifying the angles, I would make sure that you get out your notes from the past couple of weeks for angle theorems, for line and angle theorems and line and angle congruencies.